When the sound of gunfire filled the coffee house, everyone hit the floor. Everyone, except two people. Marcus calmly finished his coffee, while Frank stared at the chessboard. "You'll move," he said quietly, because they had seen far more dangerous situations over the past 30 years. If this story excites you, subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. It was exactly 9:30. Marcus Jackson, a tall, 67-year-old black man, was sitting at the corner table of the coffee house, reading his newspaper. Across from him sat his former partner, Frank O'Sullivan, a 65-year-old white man with grey hair, eating his morning pastry. This routine had been the same for 5 years. Every Tuesday morning, same table, same coffee, same chess game. "Marcus, if you move that queen, you're gonna get checkmated," Frank muttered, taking a sip of his coffee. Marcus smiled. "Frank, you still underestimate me. 30 years as partners and you still don't know me." They were both retired cops. Marcus had served 32 years with the Detroit Police Department. Frank, 30 years in the same department. Both were street cops, patrolling the same neighborhoods, facing the same dangers. "Oh, I know you," Frank laughed. "That's why I know. You're gonna move that queen." Marcus picked up the chess piece, but didn't move it. His eyes were scanning through the coffeehouse window. Across the street stood the First National Bank. It had been there for 40 years. "Frank, look out the window, but don't make it obvious." Frank's smile faded. He knew that tone in Marcus's voice all too well from decades of partnership. Something serious was happening. Without taking his eyes off the chessboard, he asked, "What is it?" 3 black SUVs in front of the bank, engines running. "There are guys inside." Frank took a sip of his coffee, as if nothing was happening. "How many to in each car?" 6 total. "And Frank, none of them look like bank customers." Frank finally looked up and glanced out the window. It took him a second to see it. 6 men, 6 different cars, all parked in front of the bank. And they were all dressed the same. Black jackets, baseball caps, sunglasses. "Marcus," Frank said slowly, "I think these guys." At that moment, 4 men entered the bank through the front door. They pulled out guns. Bang, 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 they fired into the air. Everyone in the coffee house started screaming. Customers dove under tables. Waiters ran to the kitchen, and an elderly woman began to cry. Everyone hit the floor. Everyone, except 2 people. Marcus calmly finished the coffee in his hand. Frank was staring at the chessboard. "Your move," he said quietly, because they had seen much more dangerous situations over 30 years. The other customers in the coffee house were in a panic. But Marcus and Frank, they were different. They had aged, yes. They were retired, yes. But the police spirit inside them had never died. Marcus spoke without taking his eyes off the chessboard. "Frank, left pocket?" "Of course. You, right ankle, old habit." Frank smiled, still the same paranoia after 30 years. Not paranoia, Frank, being prepared. At that moment, voices started coming from inside the bank. "Everyone get down, nobody move. Turn off your alarms." Marcus and Frank looked at each other. They were both thinking the same thing. "These kids are amateurs." "Marcus," Frank whispered, "them being this loud." "I know, first time for them. And that makes them more dangerous." Right then, someone came out of the bank door, armed, masked, and heading straight for the coffee house. "Frank, I see him." The armed man opened the coffee house door and entered. He raised his gun to the air. "Everyone down now." The last standing customers in the coffee house dropped to the floor. Now only Marcus and Frank were sitting. The armed man looked at them, 2 old men, playing chess, drinking coffee, as if nothing was happening. "You, old men, get down on the floor." Marcus slowly lifted his head. He looked into the man's eyes. 30 years of police experience had taught him to read a person's character from their eyes. This kid was scared, inexperienced, and worst of all, panicked. "Sure, son," Marcus said in a calm voice. "We were just finishing our game. Nitrogen monoxide." "Dame, get down," Frank intervened. "Son, calm down. We're just 2 old men. We won't hurt anyone." That was true. Marcus was 67, Frank 65, in plain clothes, grey hair, sitting at the coffee table. No one would guess they were former cops. The armed man relaxed a little. "Okay, but get down quietly, and nobody move." "Of course, son," Marcus said. "We can't move anyway. We're old." The man smiled behind his mask. These 2 old men weren't dangerous. But he was wrong, very wrong. Chad said. The armed man turned his back to them and looked toward the bank. He was checking on how his friends were doing. Marcus and Frank didn't miss the chance. Marcus slid his left hand under the table. He pulled out a small cell phone. From his pocket, quietly, he dialed 911. Frank reached his right hand into his jacket pocket. There, he had a small pistol he had carried for 5 years, even after retirement. He never gave up his license to carry a weapon. When Marcus answered the phone, he whispered, 911. Armed robbery at First National Bank. 6 robbers, heavily armed. Hostages. I'm retired police officer Marcus Jackson. The 911 operator was surprised. Retired cop? Where are you? I'm in the coffee house across from the bank. My old partner is here with me. We are armed. Police will be there in 5 minutes. 5 minutes is too long. These kids are amateurs and panicked. Someone could die. Frank looked at Marcus. They were both thinking the same thing. They had been partners for 30 years. For 30 years, they saved each other's lives. For 30 years, they patrolled the most dangerous neighborhoods in Detroit. Retirement hadn't stopped them from being cops. Marcus hung up the phone. Frank, are you ready? I've been ready for 30 years, Marcus. The plan? Frank smiled. You from the right, me from the left. Like the old days, okay? But be careful, Frank. We're not 25 anymore. You're faster than me even at 67, Marcus. They both slowly stood up. The armed man was still turned away, watching the bank. Marcus moved to the right, Frank to the left. 30 years of partnership. No need for words. Both knew what to do. Marcus put his finger to his lips, signaling the other coffeehouse customers to be quiet. Everyone started watching silently. Frank pulled out his gun. Marcus didn't have a weapon, but 30 years of police experience was stronger than any gun. 3, 2, 1. Marcus and Frank moved at the same time. Frank pressed his gun to the armed man's head. Drop your weapon. Marcus wrapped his arm around from behind and grabbed his throat. Police, don't move. The armed man was shocked. A second ago, there were 2 weak old men in front of him. Now he was trapped. WH, you, drop your weapon, Frank shouted. The man dropped his gun. Marcus knocked him down and handcuffed him behind his back. 30 years of police experience had never let him forget how to cuff someone. The other customers in the coffeehouse started applauding. But the job wasn't over. There were still 5 armed robbers inside the bank. Marcus stood up and picked up the fallen gun. Frank, should we wait here until the police arrive? Frank nodded. Marcus, there are innocent people inside, and these kids are panicked. They could kill someone. Marcus knew Frank was right. 30 years of police experience had taught him that too. Criminals in panic were more dangerous than calculated criminals. Okay, Frank, let's go. Like the old days. Like the old days. They both took their guns and walked toward the door. Marcus was 67, Frank 65, to retired cops. But the spirit of justice inside them was still burning. Marcus, Frank said as they stopped at the door, this might be our last mission. Marcus smiled. Frank, I've been partners with you for 30 years. If this is our last mission, I want to do it with you. They shook hands, and they walked toward the bank. As they approached the bank door, voices came from inside. Where's the money? Open the safe, hurry up. Marcus and Frank stopped at the door. They glanced inside. There were 5 armed robbers, 1 at the safe, 2 watching the customers, and 2 guarding the door. 15 to 20 customers were lying on the ground, trembling in fear. Marcus whispered to Frank, I'll handle the 2 at the door. You take the 1 at the safe. What about the other 2? I won't do anything to them. Just shout loudly to make them drop their guns. Fear factor. Frank nodded. Ready? Let's go. They entered the bank. Police, drop your weapons and get down. The 5 robbers were shocked. Where had the police come from? The 2 robbers at the door aimed their guns at Marcus and Frank. But 30 years of experience hadn't dulled their reflexes. Marcus rolled to the right, Frank to the left. To gunshots. Bang, bang, the robbers missed. Marcus and Frank didn't. 2 robbers fell to the ground. The robber at the safe aimed his gun at the customers. Don't move or I'll kill them. Frank stopped. Okay, son, calm down. You don't need to kill anyone. You're not police. You're old. Marcus stepped forward. You're right, son. We're old. But we were cops for 30 years. And you're making a big mistake right now. What mistake? Frank answered. You're threatening innocent people. That will be the end of you. The robber panicked. He was trembling, his gun slipping from his hand. I just wanted the money. Marcus approached. We know, son. But you chose the wrong path. Now put down your gun. No one needs to get hurt. The robber started crying. My mother was sick. I needed money. Frank's heart ached. How many criminals had he seen over 30 years? They all committed crimes for something. Money, drugs, family. Son, Frank said softly, I understand your mother was sick, but this isn't the way. There are ways to get help. Marcus also stepped closer. Put down your gun. You won't be the son your mother is proud of this way. The robber was sobbing now. He dropped his gun on the floor. I'm so sorry. Marcus embraced him. A 67-year-old retired cop hugged the 19-year-old criminal like his own son. Regret isn't enough, son, but it's a start. 5 minutes later, police cars arrived, ambulances, fire trucks, media. Marcus and Frank stood in front of the bank. Both were tired, but satisfied. A young police officer approached them. Who are you? Witnesses? Marcus smiled. Retired. Detective Marcus Jackson, Detroit PD, 32 years of service. Frank added, retired Detective Frank O'Sullivan, Detroit PD, 30 years of service. The young officer was surprised. Retired. But you were old, yes, Marcus said. But the police spirit never retires. When the media saw them, they started running over. Cameras, microphones, questions. How did you stay so calm? Weren't you scared? Why did you intervene? Frank answered, we've protected these neighborhoods for 30 years. Retiring doesn't mean stopping protection. Marcus added, age is just a number. The sense of justice grows stronger with age. The cameras were filming them. People were applauding. But Marcus and Frank had other things on their minds. Frank, Marcus whispered. That kid at the register, the one with the sick mother. Yes, we can do something for him. Frank agreed. A fundraiser for hospital bills. Exactly. And help him find a job when he gets out of jail. They looked at each other. They had caught criminals for 30 years. Now, they were trying to heal them. Marcus, I guess we'll never retire from this job. Marcus smiled. I don't want to retire, Frank. How about you? Me neither. That evening, Marcus and Frank were sitting at the same table in the same coffee house. But this time, they weren't alone. The whole neighborhood was with them. The coffee house owner said, I can't thank you enough. The neighborhood residents applauded and took pictures. But what Marcus and Frank did was very simple. They kept playing chess. Your move, Marcus. I know, Frank. They both smiled. They were young again, just like 30 years ago. Because the spirit of justice knows no age. Frank, are you thinking about what? Maybe we retire too early. Frank started laughing. Marcus, you're 67. When is it ever too late? You're right. But we can still protect this neighborhood. Ow. Marcus moved a chess piece. Volunteer neighborhood watch. Meet at the coffee house every Tuesday and watch the neighborhood. Good idea. But only Tuesdays, you're right, every day. They both laughed. They had been partners for 30 years. They had been retired for 5 years. Now, they were about to start anew. Because real cops never retire. And real friendship doesn't either. 1 year later, the same coffee house, the same table, Marcus and Frank sat playing chess. But now there was a sign next to their table. Neighborhood Protection Center retired Detective Marcus Jackson, 32 years of service retired. Detective Frank O'Sullivan, 30 years of service at your service every day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And every day, neighborhood residents came to them. They told their problems and asked for help. Marcus and Frank helped, because age was just a number. But the sense of justice was immortal. Marcus, Frank said that morning, don't you ever regret leaving a peaceful retirement? Marcus thought for a moment. Frank, being a bank security guard at 67 is very tiring. But we protected these neighborhoods for 30 years. Now we can't stop. Frank agreed. I think so too. Besides, you can't escape checkmate from Matt. Marcus looked at the chessboard. Frank was right. It was checkmate. Frank, you always beat me. Marcus, you always catch the criminals. I'm just good at chess. They both laughed. Marcus was 67, Frank 66, to retired cops, to close friends, to neighborhood protectors, and they would never really retire. Because justice knows no age. Neither does friendship.